Gamescom come and goes, and EA skates back into the hearts of gamers this September. Hello and welcome to Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck. Down but not entirely out, and I'm joined by a out but not entirely down Chris. I don't know what that means. Actually, it kind of has some pretty interesting implications, but you know, I just wanted to do a little flippy floppy.
Oh, there's Chris. He's not down as usual.
He's out but not down.
Yeah. He's sitting outside his house waiting for a ride, but
yeah. So Chris,
what up?
Thanks for joining me today, as usual. My wife has been out of town for 4 days, and I've been slumming it as a single parent for these 4 days. That's been she's returned from the war, which is our inside joke, and I'm no longer a single parent, which is our other joke. So I'm going to go ahead and let everybody know I have an interest in keeping this on the shorter side so I can go and spend time with her because she got home right before we started recording. So I thought it was better to get the podcast done and spend the night with her before we go to sleep instead of spending time with her immediately and then trying to push the podcast. So, Chris.
Hi.
Today, we are going to talk about Gamescom, how we experienced it, and some of the games that came out from that news-wise. We're going to talk about EA announcing a date for their return to the Skate franchise. We're going to talk about Sony kind of digging into how they've changed things up after Concord left them in a rough shape in terms of their games as a service business side. So as we go to get into all that will come down the line, and we have a question / kind of comment from a listener that I think is going to fit in nicely with one section of the news. So we'll kind of go into that. So stick around. If you're wanting to hear about some games as a service goodness, or depending on where you stand, not so goodness. Chris.
Hi, Brett.
As you know, we always start the show off, except for the one time that we didn't recently, and checking in on what we've been playing so that we can maybe put something new in front of someone who is looking for something new to play, and here's what we're talking about. I've noticed that even though we moved to 2 weeks in this, one game is lasting longer across episodes and taking up my list, which I think goes to say a lot about how my gaming habit is kind of having to evolve with my life and my other goals, which has been pretty interesting because I don't feel like mine's changed a whole lot, and I don't feel like yours has changed a whole lot. I think there might be good reasons for that on both of these because they're pretty dense games. But I'm going to throw it over to you and kind of do you want to expound any more? We've had 2 episodes in a row of you talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance. Has it opened itself and blossomed into more that you feel the need to talk about? And then I see that you have some Balatro where I think all you're trying to do is stun on them, quite honestly. You're just trying to stun on them, which I think you've earned. So here's the floor. Stun on them, and let's hear about any more of Kingdom Come 2 if you feel like you have it in you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I finished the story of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And I hope... So I'm going to run through it again. I have to do that. I have 3 trophies left, and I ain't no quitter. So I'll get it done. And it's weird because, like, I played... My first playthrough was, like, 106 hours. I almost did... I think I 100% of the game. And I was just immediately like, should I do it again? Like, do I do it again? So yeah, I'm playing it again. This is a fantastic game. Like it's weird because like I understand that there's things about it that like a lot of people might not want, but like I think every person should probably play it. It's the best RPG of all time on my today. Who knows? Maybe tomorrow some of that'll change, but I've never played an RPG like it.
Yeah, it's a very, from everything I've seen, it is a very specific type of RPG. And this is a weird thing about art in general, that it's hard to kind of qualify or quantify, maybe even both. But sometimes this sounds counterintuitive. But sometimes something being, how's the way to word this? I don't want to say worse, because that's not the wording I would use. But sometimes something being obtuse when it doesn't have to be, and it could be streamlined, actually makes for a better experience. Even if you can point at what it's doing and go, well, I can see why that's not in and of itself something that I could I could look at and go, oh, that's a positive, but it's not inherently a negative either. But it's just, I think it's weird that sometimes choosing to make a piece of art more challenging, and not like, you know, in the world of gaming, it doesn't have to mean through difficulty. It can mean through anything, right? Like something that basically the more friction that you put on the player can sometimes, maybe paradoxically, lead to a better, more enriching experience for the consumer of that art. And I think that's true across most art. Like, I think sometimes music doing something that creates a friction between the listener but then pays it off in an interesting way, can make you go like, wow, I just feel like I went through a fucking musical journey. Yeah. And same with movies and TV shows, right? Like, you know, you can build that tension, make your viewer uncomfortable in working towards trying to give them a better payoff. And I feel like this game is kind of like one of gaming's biggest examples of how you can go about doing that, because a lot of this game gives friction that other games have been working toward taking away in order to streamline themselves. How do you think that kind of squares with what you're experiencing?
I don't think you've seen this movie, and I haven't even seen this movie, so this is probably a reference that only Blake will understand. But we do this for you, Blake. The game reminds me of what everyone talks about around that movie Skinamarink. You know what I'm talking about? Did you see that one?
I've not seen it. I'm not, but I do know that it's a very unorthodox movie.
Yeah, from what I haven't seen it, but from what I understand, you're basically just dealing with this one kid going through a lot of the boring shit that makes the scary shit like scarier. It's very tense because of that. And this game kind of feels like that, where it's like not all of it is fun in the traditional sense, but it's all like for a reason. Like, the leveling system is Oblivion style, right? So you know, my new playthrough is entirely going to be based on heavy weapons, specifically so I can get one trophy, you know, easier than doing it on my regular gameplay. So, I don't know. It's just like, I think all the small stuff, like the story we talked about last week of the, you know, cleaning the fields, like that was part of what was so satisfying about it, is because by the point that you're doing stuff like that, like you're Henry and you're trying to find this stuff out. And what was great is, like, my first playthrough, I'm interested in seeing my second playthrough specifically because I plan on just mainlining the story. I'm not going to do side quests and all of that. I've done that. But what's interesting is, like, the fact that I did a lot of stuff, like, really did pay off. And even in small ways where it's like, I could have done one of the last missions easier if I hadn't made a choice about 60 hours ago where I reported this thing. And if I hadn't reported that thing, I would have had access to that thing and the person who wanted that thing 60 hours later when I was trying to finish the main game and setting up all this stuff. There was even a side quest where I could go and get backup by talking to all of the small side characters throughout the game that I had spoken to and helped out. So it was like, oh yeah, I know these guys, I helped them with this. I know these guys, I helped them with this. So I could go recruit all of them. And they're all like, oh, Henry, yeah, we'll come help you. Like, we're friends. Like, you helped us out, we'll help you out. So instead of like me fighting against this bandit to try and save this guy, it was like me and 12 of my pals who came and defended this dude. So it was like,
I love that. That's classic RPG, right? The more friends you make in these pivotal moments, the more support you have, which I love, because it kind of really does sell into the RPG dream. If you don't spend any time becoming, and I know this sounds like different games handle this in different ways in terms of how they actually make you feel this way, but the idea they're going for is, if you don't seek out becoming more of the community, less of the community is going to be there to support you. And so in a way, I like that, because it's like a weird microcosm of, if we're being real life. In life, if you don't seek out to interact with and help others, you're going to have less opportunities for people to come and help you. Like, that's just a general thing, right? Like, the more you seek out, the more you also have opportunity for people to seek you out. And so it's kind of like this self-fulfilling thing. But this feels like a really great time to slot in our first and only question of the day. Jehudi MD comes back with another question here. He says, what do you think of games that are open choice / freedom based and yet have specific trophies that force you to play a specific style or choose a particular path? Jehudi is one of our patrons for a long time, so you can head over to patreon.com/Nartech and get a fancy purple name just like him, name and credits, all that. But Chris, we're talking about a game that I think is not entirely maybe what his question was based around. I'm sure he had a specific game in mind, but I think that this game does do that, because, like you're saying, you are literally locked out of trophies because of choices, be them specific dichotomy choices, like in a game like Infamous, right, where it's the good choice, the evil choice, or something that's passive, like, do I eat meat, do I not eat meat? And that's like a much more passive choice, but it is still a choice. But the game doesn't present it as a stop the clock, one or the other right now.
Yeah.
And so how do you feel about that? It sounds like you're going for a second playthrough. So I think for this game, it's landing for you. But generally speaking, how do you feel about this?
I'm of two minds about it, because I think this is where me and you differ when we talk about trophies, is like, I don't consider trophies part of the game. So
I think that I get your intuition of saying that you think we differ there. I think it's just a matter of degree, because I ultimately agree with you. I don't think they're a part of the game.
My point comes from, like, the thing with Horizon, where you came on the show and you bitched about it, and I was like, I understood where you were coming from, and I disagreed with you, because to me, and it even goes even more simple than that, where, like, I always check the trophy guide, because I'm playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, right, to play Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and I can earn the trophies if I'm paying attention, right? So to wrap it back to the question, it's, as a trophy hunter, they're annoying because it extends my playtime. But to me, it's something that I accept going into it, right? Like, I accept that once I decided to stop rolling back saves, I was going to add 40 hours, probably max, to my Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 time. Like, I knew that. And, like, to bring back to the Horizon example, I would have known to take a picture of that thing. So, and it's not even a direct.
I want to introduce a specific question in there, because I do think that in the case of Horizon and where we are in modern times, you are correct in that if I chose to seek out a trophy guide, because you remember I was playing this game at launch.
Yeah.
And so my original thought would have been, there was a point in time where trophy guides at launch were very uncommon. So there's an argument to be made there. And my argument, if that were the case, even specifically, and it's still a little bit of my argument, is that the problem was that it's a design inconsistency, because it's the only time in the game that this happens, and it's at the very end, and you have no way of knowing. And like I mentioned before, the previous game allows you to go back and do the final boss fight as many times as you want. And for some reason, this game broke that setup that the first game would have given you to expect out of it. And so it was jarring, because it was like, I would have never thought, from the way that you previously designed games and the way the game has worked so far itself, that I wouldn't be able to do this. But to your point about the trophy guide, that game because we live in a modern day where even trophy hunters and trophy guide writers are getting early access copies so that they can have a trophy guide ready to go day one.
Which is crazy to me.
It is crazy, but it's also not every game. So I want to kind of find the point at where maybe you start to at least more tip yourself towards where I'm coming from. Imagine a game that's very, very niche. It doesn't get early access copies, comes out, but you're playing it and you really like it. You're playing it day one. You're like, I think I might want to platinum this, but there is no trophy guide. Do decisions like this, where you don't have any knowledge of that, have a bigger impact on your feeling of enjoyment towards the trophy?
Are we talking about the Horizon one or just in general?
In general, and I go towards specifically, does even the point of the question, right? Something that locks you out of something. If there is no way for you to know ahead of time because there is no trophy guide in which to tell you what to look out for, in a world where that, and the reason I bring that up is because like 10 years ago, that was more the common, right? In
I think it's two things.
14 or 15, you weren't guaranteed a day one trophy guide, so you didn't know what to expect necessarily.
Even though I didn't beat Horizon, what I do know Horizon does is tell you to scan every enemy. So the game, this was my argument before. Like, my argument was, yeah, it sucks, but also the game tells you to scan every enemy, so you should have started that fight scanning the enemy. So that to me, like, again, like in the situation that you're talking about, like, it depends on the game, but there might be a point where I'm like, I'm not going to look at this for the trophies,
Like, you know what the issue was? Because I was trying to remember why I did scan it, but the problem was I died the first time to it, and I already knew the weak point, so I didn't feel the need to scan it again. But the way their checkpoint system works, the game literally reverted back to the save before I'd ever scanned it. It didn't save the scan, but just push me back. It literally pushed the whole thing back, and I had no reason to expect that. That was a surprise to me because
that's
of course I still beat it.
I don't think that's a trophy thing. So that's
agreed, but I guess it's
to me like
how the trophy design interacts with the game design at that point.
Sure. I mean, it's the same thing as like, you play Mafia 2 and it's like, once you pick up the Playboy magazine, you're good. Like, that's kind of how it should be.
Yeah, I would say so as well.
I just think I think if you look at trophies as intrinsically tied to game design, every game is annoying unless it's not easy. Whereas, like, to me, I want to play Kingdom Come 2 more, right? But part of it is unlocking is finishing it. It's the satisfaction of seeing that trophy pop, And
what that means too, right?
It's a different.
It's an excuse to play more of something you're already loving.
Yeah, but it's also like, for me, the satisfaction of popping the platinum trophy is like the work it takes to do it. Like.
Yeah,
I was joking with Sean and Ben the other day because we were going through trophy lists, and I'm like, and Sean's like 1 or 2 trophies away from it, and I'm like, I don't know how you let that go, but it's also just like, why wouldn't you want to be like, when it pops, it was, it's worth it is a weird phrase because we're talking about digital things, right? But like,
sure,
it's just
the worth it is the sense of accomplishment, not the trophy itself.
Yeah,
it's a sense of accomplishment that comes with unlocking the trophy. Right,
and it's like, stuff like, Kingdom Come's not the rarest trophy in the world, but like having a trophy that I know it was hard and it took me a lot of work makes that trophy, like, I'm more proud of that trophy. I'm more proud of Sekiro because it was harder and all this stuff. Spec Out the Line, one of the hardest platinum trophies I've ever had to get. And like... And I got it, and like now I know, like, it was great. New Vegas playing at 1 frame per minute to finish off that platinum. Like once it pops, it was like I went through so much dumb shit doing this, and it makes popping it worth it. There's a ton of reasons. It's like Silent Hill 2. I would have gotten the platinum if there were no trophies. I may not have done a no gun run, but like, I would have seen all of the endings, and I would have gotten most of the collectibles, and I
Yeah.
would have played the game multiple times. Resident Evil 2, it's the same thing. By the end of me getting the platinum, I was more into like, how fast can I finish this game? You know, and then the rest of it just came with it. So I'm as someone who hunts trophies, going back to the question, as someone who hunts trophies, I hate it. As someone who just as a gamer thinking about it, I think it's fine. I don't think that's what I think they want to encourage you to do everything, and they want to encourage you to see good Cole, evil Cole's story. So they're going to give you get all these good trophies and get all these bad trophies. If you're not invested enough to get all of them and do it all twice, then just don't go for the platinum. I think, and that's where it, to me, it comes in. So I hope that made sense.
I think my answer is pretty similar with a slight bit of nuance in that I think everybody's played a game that they enjoyed, but the trophy, because of the trophy thing this way, they just kind of got frustrated and didn't want to get the platinum, but just still enjoy the game. And I do that all the time, Chris. Much like you were talking about with Sean, you have looked through my trophy list and you know I have like 10 games that I'm one trophy away from. And I'm just like, no, because getting that trophy will make me actively dislike this game. I'll remember it poorly as a result of this experience, and I don't want that.
See, but it's funny because even like we had talked about with Grand Theft Auto Vice City, I was starting to hate it.
Yeah.
But once I finished it and popped the platinum, I was like, that was great. And then I turned it off and never played. You know, like because for me, like popping the platinum makes that struggle worthwhile. And like full well, I don't platinum every game I play, so it's a lot of stuff where it's like, I love this game and I want to continue to play it and get the platinum, or I'm so close
that
I might as well continue and get the platinum.
I know that you have one that is a good example of what I was about to say. My worry is that I'm going to dredge through this very unfun loop of trying to get this final trophy. That's a good one. I was actually thinking of a game that you don't have the platinum for this very reason, Metal Gear Solid. And my point being is my worry with a game like the perfect example is Nier Replicant and the original Nier, both of them. It's the same trophy because the problem is that the loop you have to go through to get all the materials needed to level up all the weapons all the way is so fucking boring and mind-numbingly just monotonous and it takes forever still because it's just super RNG based. So you get to this point where my worry and why I don't go for it is because I'm worried, and I have a little bit, but I started to feel my disdain for it coming. And my worry is that if I push further and further and further and I still give up before the platinum pops, then I am literally left with my last, I don't ever get the payoff of the trophy. And my last memory of the game is this incredibly unpleasant 10 hours, 20 hours, whatever it ends up being.
Well, that's
and
the thing.
I know
you
that
have
you're
to finish
there.
It.
Yeah, and I know that you're there, though, because you did a number of the VR missions in Metal Gear Solid and then just decided, no, fuck that. I'm not doing 1,500 VR missions or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
300, but yeah.
Yeah, I know I went crazy high, but my point being is that it feels like that. And you're just like, I just don't want it because what happens if I don't? Then I just sunk so much more time, effort, and frustration into something I still don't have.
See, but the thing with me is that if I decided to do it, I would finish.
Yeah,
it was just
for you.
Thing,
it's once you've decided that's what you're
I'm
doing.
Gonna do it,
and I know that because you're doing that with Balatro right now, and I love Balatro, but I don't have it in me to do that. I would rather remember Balatro in my mind as this incredibly fun game that's like a once in a generation experience that I'm so glad I got to have, than start to hate it because I decide to take on the challenge of getting the platinum, which is rough. But that's coupled with the fact that I don't like to play games forever.
Yeah.
And so the only way to get the Balatro platinum, if we're just being honest, is to either brute force it through hundreds of hours in as short a period of time as you can, or, which I'm not doing that either, or to do what you've been doing and kind of play it over a 2-year window where you take a little break and you come back, you take a little break and come back. I don't play games that way. And so I just know that that's not that trophy is not compatible with my gameplay with my gameplay loop, and it's not even close enough that I'm willing to push my limit a little to get it. Sometimes I do get trophies that would normally in my mind go, that's not the type of trophy I normally get. So back to the point of the question, my answer's slight change is specifically one. I think it's ultimately a good thing. The only time I think it is truly a bad is if there's only one trophy that hinges on one decision, because then it doesn't feel like it's thematically accurate to the game. If it's a game, it depends on the game. There's always an exception for everything, right? But if the game is about these choices and it's about experiencing them through both choices, like BioShock, do you choose to free the little sisters or consume them? Do you, in Infamous, choose to be a good character? And part of that is the game enforces it, right? You're not really motivated, like technically speaking, in Infamous, you could do one major decision good, the next major decision bad, and you can just constantly stay in the middle, but you're not really rewarded for doing so. Mm-hmm. BioShock, the same. You're not really motivated to save one, free one, save one, free one. The game really motivates you to pick a lane and stick to it. And True. That makes the trophies being different like that feel worth it. When a game does this, but then the only time that they interact with it in the trophies is one stupid trophy, it just kind of feels like, why didn't you commit? Like, why didn't you actually go all the way through? If the only trophy for Infamous 2 was just you have to beat the game on evil, that's an easier trophy list, but it feels wasted.
I mean, I guess I don't necessarily have anything to say opposed or for that. Like, I don't necessarily agree, but I totally see where you're coming from on it.
Yeah.
Again, it's the incentive. I mean,
I think for me, if you want to know how it affects my gameplay, the fact is that most of the time for these games, I will sing their praises and not have the platinum, and that's okay, because like I love Tainted Grail and I will gush about Tainted Grail. I will never get the platinum in Tainted Grail. It's not going to happen. I know that. I knew that day one. I knew that square one. As soon I say square one, I knew that really once I started being like, I'm kind of in love with this game. Let me look at the trophy list real quick. And then I saw, it's like super specific to where if you fuck up, you may have like 7 playthroughs to get this book. It's like Dark Souls 3's Platinum, where it's like there's such a big series of events that you can fuck up that getting every ring in Dark Souls 3 can become a 10 playthrough endeavor.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's my answer anyway.
Well, there you go, Judy. That's where we landed on it. Now, Chris, do you want to quickly stun on him about your Balatro?
Yeah, I got 2 more decks down.
That's kind of like record time, being real. Like
this is
the quickest you've moved through 2 decks, I feel like, since that beginning kind of, it
was almost exactly 12 hours apart. The first one I sent at 11:52, second one I sent at 11:34 p.m. So AM PM. I was not playing Balatro that long, for the record. Just to be clear. Yeah. No, so the way I did it is, at this point, every single deck is up to gold, except the painted deck. So I only have 2 left, but when I started my gold run, almost everything was like around black or purple. So I have red gold. I beat my orange stake on that one yesterday, and then painted deck I have to finish up. I don't know, man. It's funny because to me, Balatro is the perfect like do 5 runs or think you're going to do 2 runs and then do 15 and that's what you did all day. But to me, it's just that I think even if I did get the platinum, it would still be something I ran because it keeps me distracted. And honestly, like let me put it this way. If I ever, write and publish my book and it gets successful, it's dedicated to local funk.
Yeah, that's so funny. One of the things that I think is really interesting, though, just as a way of being able to compare the two of us, is that even the games that have my highest hour counts, they pale in comparison to like you on Apex alone is like 3 of my most sunken time games. Mm-hmm. And that's pushing it. Like I played like probably 200 hours of Terraria, which is a lot of Terraria, by the way. But it is not. I don't even know what was it, 1,700 hours of Apex or something?
Closer to 2,000 at the end. Yeah.
At the end. So that's kind of my point. It's like the closest I have to that, I'd probably have to go look, but it's probably Destiny 2. And I fucking loathe that game now. And I don't really, but I loathe the thought of returning to it because it's too much. It's too much.
You know, it's funny because you can see kind of
Destiny, it's any game.
If you were to ever look at like the timeline of my trophy hunting, you'll see like, oh, he got a bunch in like 2017, like that era, and then what happened here where he got none? Oh, that was Apex, and then now I've stopped and I'm up to 160 something. So that was all I was doing.
I know, and that's
every night we're running it.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised, realistically speaking. I wouldn't be surprised if your Balatro time at this point is above pretty much my highest games.
Let's find out.
So here we go.
Randomly in the middle of the show.
Wasted on Destiny. I've played 448 hours and 12 minutes of Destiny.
I think mine is actually lower than yours, believe it or not.
Oh, probably is. I don't know if this is combining. Used to, time wasted on Destiny broke out Destiny 1 versus Destiny 2. I don't know if they still do that anymore. Yes, it does. So 60 hours and 35 minutes on Destiny 1.
Jesus. Of just wasted time?
Yeah, wild shit. So, well, you know, time that you spent on it. So, all that being, 448, that's probably my highest ever.
I would think so.
I feel pretty confident. Like, I played a lot of Minecraft, but even Minecraft, and I'm talking about like early years because I just didn't have a kid and everything. I played more Terraria than Minecraft, so I probably played, I'll say maybe 170 hours of Minecraft, which is still a lot.
It is. I mean, so my Balatro was at 398.
Yeah, you're coming very close to my Destiny 2, and my Destiny 2, that took me from launch until the last time we played 2 years ago.
I'm fascinated to find Destiny 2 in my list. I mean, I have a ton. That's why I don't necessarily believe these are like perfect, because I'm just looking at the PSN numbers.
Oh, well, no, there's actually a website called Time Wasted on Destiny, is my point. Like, you can literally type yours. Like, so yours is what? Chris Figs _?
No, that's my Twitter. It's Figs21K.
Yeah, that's right. Figs21K. I got you.
I'm not
I'll
even
give you the
close
information,
to you, bro.
Oh, did you go to it?
I found it here. I'd like to see what that says, but my PSN says 184.
Yeah, we'll see. Because you got the platinum. You did.
I did.
You did a lot better on that regard. All right. Chris, you have played 207 hours and 5 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It probably puts together PS5 and PS4, right?
It does.
Oh, so that means I spent that much time on just the PS5 version, which is not my total Destiny time.
Yes, that's a good point. And you spent 48 hours on Destiny 1.
That makes sense. Yeah.
There you go. The more you know. Yeah, on Destiny 1. I got 12 hours more than you on Destiny 1. Bitch.
Wow. I mean, I didn't like Destiny 1 very much. I didn't like either of them. All right.
So
Apex Legends.
Yeah.
1,769 on PS4, 142 on PS5.
Oh, yeah. See, that's insane times. Like, I'm sure some of that's like essentially AFK play, but that's still insane.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because like playtime's so weird because my Kingdom Come Deliverance PSN clock is at like 250 hours, but I've fallen asleep with that game on multiple times. Like, I'll just wake up. It's actually funny because I've woken up a couple times and it's just Henry going, "Oh, if I don't eat something soon, I'm gonna be angry." I'm like, "Sorry, dude. You've been idling for 20 hours."
God, Chris,
I'm feeling a bit peckish.
Did you light hibernate with your 20-hour rest?
No, dude, because every once in a while I'd like come downstairs. Like when I was really into it, I was like staying up and like just fucking locked in. And I would go to the bathroom and be like, I'm gonna watch some TikToks on my phone, and then just pass the fuck out. And then just the game's just still on and running. Like, oh no.
Poor Henry.
I'm so sorry, Henry.
Yeah, so it's just funny because like a lot of time on a game for me, and like my Terraria, which is one of my most, was me coming back to it a second time. I played a lot on PS3 and Vita back to back. Like when it came out on Vita, I just swapped to playing my same world on Vita. And then when Saul started playing with me a couple years later is when I got in and did the rest and got the platinum. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to play it anymore. Love the game. I never need to touch it again. And it's like, I love Terraria. I would struggle to go back to it because that's just the way that it works for me. And it's also because the game doesn't really have a narrative purpose. So replaying it doesn't have as much meat for me to enjoy because it's just gameplay that I've spent 200 hours playing. Like at least if I play The Last of Us again for the 5th time, 6th time, whatever, it's a really great story that I get to experience again. So I think you'll probably notice most of the time when I replay games, it either is like big windows apart. Like if it's like a game like Oblivion, I hadn't played Oblivion in like 10 years before I played the remaster. Well, I'll take that back. I played it like 3 years prior on the Xbox. But I, even then I didn't finish it on Xbox. I just played like 20, 30 hours. So yeah, it's a really short game. It's something I can beat in like 2-3 days, and then I'm like, oh, that was fun. I'm gonna go back and do my thing. So it's definitely a difference in gaming. So I'll be curious to see where Balatro lands when you get done. But it's exciting times. But I think it's just one of those things where eventually I think you start to learn the type of gamer you are. But also a good lesson to learn is always be willing to try things that even feel like they're not your typical thing. And I say that because I'm still playing Expedition 33, and I think I was kind of iffy on it. Before going into it, I was just like, I don't know that it's going to be the game for me. But I think it's a perfect game for me, despite outside looking in. It looked cool, but it was just kind of like, I don't know how I feel. Now that I'm playing it, I'm like, this is a good example of why I need to be more open to being like, no, I can play turn-based games. I have a history of enjoying them. I don't know when my brain auto kind of hit this point of, for the most part, I'm like, if it's turn-based, I lose interest. I don't know how that happened. It wasn't like a conscious decision, but playing a few games that do it well, I think can put you back in that like, no, there are probably a few bad examples in the genre, but that also there's bad examples of real-time combat, and I don't hate real-time combat, so let that be what it is. So I don't have a whole lot more to say about Expedition 33. I think it's a very good game. I do not know why they thought it a good idea to name it Clair Obscur Expedition 33. My biggest thing is that maybe they have plans on doing something with this world in the future, and they can call it Clair Obscur. It's not even anything related to Expedition, and it's kind of like Sid Meier's at this point.
My guess is so that they could have that banger song. And
maybe, but that doesn't need to be in the name.
Expedition 33 does not sound as good as Clair Obscur. Sorry, it doesn't.
I remember I'm playing the game, and I come across the Claire, and I'm like, oh, that's the name of the game.
You're like, that's not obscured at all. It's right there.
Yeah, so it's interesting. But man, also, as if we don't know it, naming is fucking hard. Be it characters, be it IPs, be it games. Naming is fucking difficult. And the internet, the advent of the internet, where everybody can just throw out names to shit that they don't even intend on doing much, and then or copyright it super easily, just means that it gets harder and harder. Because now you may come up with a cool name, but somebody already used it for like a fucking something that they let die 7 years ago. But now he's like, well, I can't use that because that's just how it works. So anyway, Chris, let's scooch on into our first and kind of I guess it's by way of number of games, it's probably our biggest piece of news. And it's about Gamescom. So Gamescom 2025 hit, and opening night live came and was a 2.5-3 hour behemoth, and it brought with it a lot
Too much
of games. And I want to start this by going ahead and saying that first and foremost, I kind of felt myself not interested. I knew Gamescom and opening night live was happening, but I had to work, and I just wasn't even doing the thing I used to do where I like throw it up on one of my monitors while I continue to work and just can kind of glance over here and there, because I felt like I just was like, eh. Yeah. I don't, and in a way, watching what I did watch, so I ended up later watching about half of it in spurts before I just kind of never went back to it. And I think that tells me everything I needed to know. I think shows are getting very bloated. They're very big, and I'm assuming part of that is just due to the number of games that are coming out and the number of games they're choosing to showcase. Some of it's also just, if we're being honest, inefficient show scheduling. Like sometimes it really is just, this doesn't add to this show in any meaningful way to me. Therefore, I feel like you can cut 40 minutes of this and I would never, like, it wouldn't change in a negative sense. If anything, it would actually make it better because it was fluff. So for me, I kind of just feel like there's a point where it's great that there's a million games coming out, but if you try and highlight a million games, it's harder for as many to feel like they stick in your head. But the balance of that is there are more opportunities for a game to come across and kind of stick with you. But I noticed that you mentioned the same thing. You kind of got bored and skipped out after a certain point. What do you think is going on there? Do you think this is kind of like a aging gamer mixed with the natural other responsibilities that lead me to not having enough time to be actively excited for this? And I say that because I saw some gamers that I know are older than us, but they're actively in games media, and I think it's easier to be excited about games when your work involves that. You know?
Well, I think that's true. I don't know. I don't know. This may be a hot take, maybe, or a disrespectful take, maybe, but I just think we're at a point where like there's so many games that not every game is for everyone, and it gets to a point where like I feel like there needs to be some kind of effort to show more games for everyone rather than showing everyone's game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's hard because I get the idea is like you need to platform some of these games for, you know.
Yeah, you do, and that's for sure. But like, how many times can you show me a quirky game with an indie art style about a group of friends who go on an adventure doing something? How many times?
Well, and I know everybody has their one. My thing here lately, like the past, I feel like 3 years, I'm just being honest, has been how many times can you show me a group of the exact same looking anime video game characters?
Right. How many times can you announce a reskin for Genshin Impact?
Yes. And I know that they're probably not all, but it's to the point.
That one looks kind of cool.
Even that Grand Blue Fantasy Relink game that you had that you and Blaze were playing, I don't think it's a bad game, but the problem is when I visually see it looks exactly like Grand Blue and Honkai Star Rail and every other game, where for some reason the anime game art style has just been figured out and they don't try to change it. Very seldom does a game come along and try to change it. But when they do, it's pretty neat. It's like, oh, look, this is kind of cool. And at first it was easier to get over, but now it's just like you show me another one of those and I'm like, I'm checked out already. I don't even fucking care.
I just don't. This is me, maybe an old gamer take. I don't understand that version of gacha as something people want to engage with. Right? Like, Marvel Snap is a gacha game to a degree, but like...
Certainly is, yeah.
To be fair to everybody else, I guess, I've been playing Marvel Snap so long that like I have everything almost by default. But my point
for you
is
to get anything new, you have to actively be waiting for a new set to hit.
Yeah, like my shop is all come back later, you know. So like, yeah, it's different. But you know, when I'm playing Snap, if I'm spending money, it's because like, oh, I love this Venom skin. Like Venom's my most played card. I like collecting his cards, so I'll spend too much money on this so I can get that. You know, I'll do that, but Gotcha games just offend me when it's like you can actively pay for a 1% chance to get the best character in the game that you need to be competitive. And I'm like, that sucks. I don't understand that level of it, but it's just gambling to a different degree. You know, I always tell the story like gambling does nothing for me, and I know that because I went to the casino for a wedding. I played the slots once, I lost all of my money, and I went back to the hotel and never stepped foot in the casino again.
That's exactly what I told my wife. We went, and I was like, if we're gonna do this, I'm gonna do it big. So I was like, I'm gonna do $500. I was like, that's a lot of money. It really is, but so thankfully I'm in a position where I have it, and I'm like, I'm going to do it. We're going to see. And, you know, you kind of do this thing where it chips down, but then you win some, but then you lose back down, you win some. Mm-hmm. And we left there, and I literally, I think my wife just cashed me out for me at like $20. And I was like, yeah, good call. And I was like, look, the only reason I let it go that way is because the whole point was if I want to do it, and I know, first of all, that's low. And I didn't realize how low that was until I looked over and saw a dude who literally spent $300 in like a minute. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, shit. Because he was playing at one of those, and it was a little machine, but it had a really high per bet thing. It was like $3 a play, and he was doing this button that like had you play like 20 plays at once. And I was like, holy shit. And this dude just bam, bam, bam. And I was like, this dude just lost $300 and he didn't bat an eye. And I was like, first of all, my real first thought was, what kind of money do these people have that you don't even bat an eye at that? Like, bro, a $15 hamburger kind of makes me go, what? Yeah. Yeah. So
I don't know.
Crazy
I will say, Balatro convinced me that I could sit at a poker table. I was like, I'm going to play poker. And my friend's like, you don't have enough money to play poker. But I'm like, I can play Balatro. I know the hands. I'm very glad I didn't go. I have no interest in losing money that way. If I'm going to lose money gambling, I'm going to put $5 on a 50-leg parlay that pays out $2.3 billion. And that's how I'm going to gamble money. Because if I hit that, fun, and the bet's fun to make, but that's it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so with all that though, I get your point. There's just Tangent so much, City. And it kind of, I feel like it makes it a little difficult to actually try and hone in on some games. I'm going to do my best with what was shown because I think there's still some to talk about. But in the long run, what I really wanted to note was that for whatever reason, I've been feeling more and more disconnected from games shows, and I think a lot of that is because they're so multi-platform and they're so large that you get shown too much. The ones I've had the most enjoyment out of lately have been the manufacturers exclusive ones, and it's primarily like stylistically, because like a Sony State of Play is going to be like 10 games, and that's pretty great. I like that because like the State of Play where they announced the Marvel Toucan or whatever the fuck it's called, was great because I kind of felt like even if I didn't care about a game, it kind of moved on quickly enough to hit something I cared about. And even with me caring about it, I was kind of just glad that by the end of it all, the thing was over in a relatively reasonable time. It's very difficult for me to get excited about a 3-hour game showcase. And it's hard for me to know if there was ever a time where I'd be excited about that, honestly.
Can I put out a hot take? Actually, it works because of exactly what you said. I don't know if you agree with me. And I will start this off with like, as again, both of us don't care about exclusives to a degree. And actually, I played a little bit of Gears today, and I was like,
"Oh, did Gears drop today?
Yeah,
Gears and Helldivers today.
Yeah, Gears and Helldivers.
Nice.
And when I was playing it, and I saw the Xbox Studio logo come up, and I'm like playing Gears, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty fucking cool. Like, I don't really care. It was like immediately like kind of like a, yeah, like exclusives or whatever, but they're whatever.
But here's the thing: you only feel that way because at one point in time there were exclusives. If exclusives had never happened, you wouldn't even care. You would just be like, "Oh, I'm
that's my point." I think these game shows lost their luster when I don't know how to explain it, but like when you were hit with
that it's going to hit
console exclusive.
Yeah, it gave you that sense of, it's the forbidden fruit. I don't have an Xbox, but I kind of want one because that game looks cool.
Well, it's like as a PlayStation.
I have a PlayStation. That's the game that they don't get to play this shit. Look how cool this looks.
Right, like,
yeah.
Remember when I think it was Jeff when he announced Last of Us, It was either Last of Us. He announced one of Naughty Dog's games. I don't remember what it was.
He announced The Last of Us 1 when during the Game Awards 2012 or 13, back when it was still on Spike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to me, I think what makes that show so great, right, and so exciting for people like us, it's more because we're PlayStation guys, I think, because Xbox hasn't had a lot of it, and that's not even me throwing a dig. They just haven't, as fans, had the same level of, you're putting on the Game Awards and the Naughty Dog logo comes up and you go, oh shit, like you kind of sit up a little bit more, you know what I mean? And I think that's the real reason why people are so engaged in the console war, right? Is because it's like when you're a PlayStation player, you have these like tiny small victories that do make you feel a little bit loyal to that brand, right? It's like I see that Naughty Dog logo come up and I'm like, oh, I'm getting something. Well, it's not weird, you know, and that I think that,
well, and on the flip side, I think an interesting one for that, because I agree. A flip side of that, and TT Dog has been around long enough that he'll remember this, because I remember he commented about it. We were watching one of the Xbox showcases. I think it was like E3 2019, and it was when they announced at the Xbox showcase, you see. This wasn't exclusive though. That's right, but I still think it was at the Activision showcase. So it was, or the Microsoft showcase. So it was weird. I guess full circle, it was a Microsoft game, or it is now. But Sekiro was shown, and I remember it said From Software. Yeah, it said From Software, and then it said Activision. And Saul and I both were like, "What?" And it was that moment of like, not only are we getting a From Software, I'm pretty sure during an Xbox showcase, it's also Activision. What the fuck is going on? Like, it just felt like that's not how this works. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was really an interesting moment. And I think that it's kind of like you were talking about, regardless of whether I care about I think exclusives are a good thing personally. I think it drives you to want to choose a box. That doesn't mean that I don't think exclusives are 100% necessary, nor do I think it means that exclusives can't eventually leave their platform. I think the have your cake and eat it too model of have it on your platform for a period of time and then put it on your competitor's platform when you've kind of reached sales, what would you even say, like when you've sales saturation on your platform, when sales trickle down to a very low drop, might as well move it over. Everybody got the moment on that system, and you still get to have that. I'm glad I had this system because I got this moment before everyone else, but now everybody else gets to eat the cake that I got all the bites on. I got the good bites first. And now it's still a good cake, but now it's a cake that's been sitting out for a day. I got that shit fresh out the box. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff where I think that you are right. Regardless of how you feel about whether exclusives should actually exist, it is hard to deny that psychology-wise, the have and the have-nots of something can really be there, because times where Xbox has actually shown some cool shit exclusively. Like, I remember whenever Scalebound was still supposed to be coming and they announced it, I was like, not gonna lie, that's fucking sick. That's really cool. And that makes me be like, maybe it's a good thing that I still own an Xbox. Like, I don't have to feel that missing out because I still have the other box. Whereas I haven't had that, I own an Xbox, I'm so glad, because nothing that they've put out that I've cared that much about this generation has only been on it besides Halo Infinite.
Yeah. No, you're good. That was a great time.
Ironically, I was playing that on PC, but I could have been playing it on Series X. I just didn't have Series X at the time. So it's weird, but I don't know how much that plays into it, but you might be right. I think it's a mixture. I think it's things feel less premier by that factor.
Yeah.
But also it is 3 hours of games.
Is a lot.
First of all, dude, I struggle to play one game in a month these days. Like, gone are the days of me flying through Expedition 33 in a week. It's not going to fucking happen. It's not. So I think at this point, I'm at a point where I think everybody says, right, like when you're young, you're time rich but money poor. But as you start to get money rich, you become more time poor. And it's a mixture, because like I've had these 4 days and I've had very little time to myself. But even the time I have had to myself, I've been very into messing with our card game. But that's also just because I have conflicting interests. I want to play games, but I want to do other things. And so since I have less time and I'm having to divide it more specifically, there's going to be times where I just give up my gaming hobby in order to facilitate something else. And that feels right. I wish I had more time, but I don't. Yeah. So 3 hours of showcase just sounds like there's 100 games that I'll never have the time to play, even if I were interested in them.
Mm-hmm. That was a lot of it. Is just being like, yeah, some version of me might play that, but not this one.
There exists a world in where Brett's homeless, jobless, or whatever. There exists a world in
really
where
into Apex Legends.
there exists a timeline possibly where Brett just played 1,700 hours of Apex Legends.
Maybe this is more me focused than you, but I do think part of the lost excitement is just leak culture is so strong that like
that's also true.
I kind of know everything that's coming, but like, could you imagine if I guess Gears is a good, Hi-Fi Rush just on a random Tuesday was announced for PlayStation. Like that would have been hype as shit. Imagine, imagine that tweet comes out announcing Gears Reloaded with no leaks that Gears was coming and Project Latitude and all the talking about it. They just did it. That would be more exciting.
Yeah, to a degree, you're right. But I also want to throw that on the opposite side because there actually were a few games shown at Gamescom that did not leak that I actually was like, this is really fucking neat. I think this is a good time to talk about this one. One of the coolest things I saw from the bits that I did watch, and that's sad because I watched like half of it, including the pre-show, the Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight surprisingly might be the thing that I got the most like. It didn't leak. No one knew it was coming. It's doing a big shakeup to the Lego formula, and it's showing a lot of love to the Batman IP. Like, what's not to like here? And I thought that was kind of like a neat, like, oh, sweet. Tom Henderson didn't tell me this was coming.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I think that's the problem with Gamescom. That's the only game I feel compelled to talk about. That's actually the only game I remember was there.
Yeah, I know Resident Evil was there. Actually showed Requiem, so I haven't seen the Requiem gameplay. It
looks great. It's Resident Evil, and I'm fucking hyped. But like, you don't need to know that. I'm hyped to play it. Lego Batman looks fucking awesome.
Lego Batman looks so cool.
Until they showed like more of it, I was like, are they actually doing Batman Arkham Asylum Lego? Because that's what it looked like. It was like Batman Arkham Trilogy Lego, and I was like,
that's what I thought too. Until they started showing, I was like, wait a minute, that's from the Batman.
See, I think they baited it, right? Yeah. Because they start you off like it looks like Lego Batman, and then you get into the Tumblr. That's the same. That's the one from Arkham Knight, and then all of a sudden you're like, that's the Batman. That's Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah,
what's happening?
The Nolan trilogy. Yeah,
yeah.
It's pretty wild. Also, great trailer because it does it kind of plays on your expectation because even once you start to think you know what it is, then it shifts. Because like I thought the same thing. I was like, dude, kind of a sick idea to just remake the Arkham series in Lego. Like that's a genuinely good idea because it sounds like it's going to be a while before we get another Arkham game from WB proper. So why the fuck not let them license it out to Lego? And I've learned, like I told you, I'm not saying it was like an amazing game, but some of the most fun I've had with Lego lately was Lego Horizons. Lego Horizon being different, like actually being like it's a Lego game in look and functionality the way that you expect, but now you have this extra layer of like combat, there's hiding, there's stealth, all these things that are not actually normally in a Lego game, and this was kind of exciting. And my wife even was like, I like this. So we go to play another Lego game and it has none of that, and she's like, I don't like this. And I was like, sorry. But the Lego formula was kind of very kid driven, and that's interesting too, because Horizon is kid driven. You can totally play as a kid, but it's way more active if you have a higher skill ceiling. You can play it at a higher tier. As weird as that is to say, and that's that's coming around even more because this is the first Lego game with a fucking difficulty mode. The Lego Batman game is going to have. First.
Brett is a high tier Lego player.
I'm a high skill Lego Horizon player.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, it looked awesome. I'm gonna play that. But honestly, dude, outside of that, I can't think of anything. Like Toxic Commando looks pretty neat.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
They've shown stuff. Lost Soul Aside got shown. Like you mentioned, we have. Good.
That Lost Soul Aside trailer made me less interested. I think that was a bad trailer.
I didn't watch it. I haven't watched anything because I actually haven't watched the trailer for Lost Soul Aside since like 2020.
That's crazy.
I've seen the one from 2020 or whatever, and then the one from 2016, 15, whatever it was when he first announced it. Those are the only two I've ever seen. But I'm sold. I already know I want to give it a try. And that doesn't mean I think it's going to be a great game, but he's already sold me on the concept, and I think it's a cool story of one dude making a game, then getting a lot of backing and going, maybe I can do this at a way bigger scale than I was going to do. Let me milk this for what it's worth, because this may be the only time I ever get to make a game at this scale. Fucking cool. I'm glad he gets to. I'm going to support the shit out of that because I think it looks cool. And I guess I watched the re-reveal trailer when they gave it a release date. So I watched 3 trailers. But yeah, I think it looks good. We'll see how it ends up going. But at this point, it's kind of I am interested and I want to support the way around it. Seems cool. So yeah. There's games I'm excited about that were shown, like Sonic Racing Crossworlds, but I don't care about a Pac-Man crossover. But that's something that I was doing recently on the Discord. Blackheart had mentioned, he's like, you should play Fortnite because you can play as all these characters, and I'm like, yeah, but like we mentioned last podcast episode, I don't actually find a lot of enjoyment in just putting a skin of a character that I know on, even if it's one I like. If you told me today that, like, realistically going through, even though I think a Killzone crossover for Helldivers is cool, guess who didn't download Helldivers again and buy the Killzone thing? Not me. I didn't. I could still go, hey, it's a cool idea, and I could see the passage through, but I didn't give a shit. It didn't draw me back into a game I already knew I liked, crossing over with an IP I know I like. So I think for me, hearing about Pac-Man, I don't give a shit. I don't need Pac-Man in my Sonic game. You know, it's like I just want to do Sonic Racing, and I hope it's as good as
thought that was weird.
All-Stars Transformed. Like, don't get me wrong, it makes sense as to why it's happening. It's just I don't care. That doesn't mean they shouldn't show it. It just means that for me, it's like, oh, you showed a game I already had interest in, but what you showed me added nothing to my interest. So that, in a way, it does feel like it's doing work against me, as weird as that is to say. So, yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a lot more to talk about because even some of the things I saw, like Absalom and stuff, like they look all right, but I genuinely don't know when I'm going to play it. So it does. I will say, I thought that being in the range of this. Cool. Yeah, until you found out that it was limited run games.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, that was unfortunate just because limited run have such a bad track record. Going through the fact that, of course, it's my final straw. I bought the Sonic X Shadow Generations Collector's Edition from them, and thankfully they started at least shipping the game on release date and then doing the rest later. But I was supposed to have, at the end of July, had my Sonic and Shadow on top of the Dreamcast figure. And guess what got delayed?
The figure?
Yeah. There are people that have waited like 3 years for some limited run games products. Don't even tell me you're going to fucking do it. If you don't, why am I pre-ordering this?
You got to be ready.
Shit. Yeah, like, what are you doing? Fucking, at this point, print to demand it and charge more. I don't even care. Have it to where you make it when I order it, because this is ridiculous. But that's the world we live in. And, you know, Ghost of Yotei was shown, but I don't know if it's just I'm less excited for Ghost of Yotei or that I don't actually care to learn more about it. I just want to experience it. And so it's weird to figure out.
I've got nothing for Ghost of Yotei. I'll probably try it and get halfway through again and be done. So,
yeah, in the Discord, we had one of our longtime listeners and patrons, Rude Cold, say that he kind of came in but felt like he wasted his time and he only watched it because this is one of the few times that a show was actually at an hour of the day that he could watch it, because it's usually at like 2 a.m. over there.
Yeah.
Which is, that's rough time. So,
well, I remember watching it on a second screen and still feeling like it was a waste of time. Like,
that's rough.
Yeah, like I was like, I would
when
rather
you weren't
even
focusing on it,
Dexter episode or something. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, that's rough. Oh man, but there we are. I don't want to say too much more because I can't talk on it in a big. So it's the topic has kind of shifted to just becoming where we are in terms of how games, at least big gaming events, start to hit us these days. And yeah, something has shifted, whether it's me or the games industry. I think this is an age-old thing where as you get older, it's hard to figure out if your interest is slipping because of something that the thing is doing or something happening within you. And it's very difficult to parse out, unfortunately. Yeah. But on a different note, we have a different piece of news here. EA and developer Full Circle have officially locked in the early access launch for Skate, the much anticipated return of the Skate franchise after 15 years. The game will be free to download and goes live on September 16th, 2025 across PS5, PS4, interestingly enough, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, and PC via Steam, Epic Games Store, and the EA app. Set in the sprawling social sandbox city of San Vansterdam, Skate supports cross-play and cross-progression, empowering up to 150 players per server to shred together. The game returns to the franchise's roots with a revamped Flick-It control system enhanced by the Frostbite engine, while introducing slick new moves like Wallies and Slappies, and building features like Spectate mode and Spectaport for smoother gameplay transitions. Embracing the live service model, it will offer seasonal updates every quarter, complete with evolving content, including new gameplay modes, cosmetic items, world updates, and evolving soundtracks. A key design choice is that Skate will be always online only, with no offline mode available, reflecting its vision of a dynamic, ever-evolving world that can't function without a live connection. Chris, I know that you don't have the same built-in love for Skate that some have inherently, or at least from times I've spoke with you, Skate's not a series that you have any kind of real nostalgia and love for. Is that fair to say?
I like it, but yeah, I don't care.
Yeah. This feels like when some people are like, oh, a game series is coming back, but in a form that doesn't match what I'm interested in. And I think the problem I'm running into here is I feel very motivated to try this since it's free to play. But the free to play of it all, first of all, scares me because it feels like it's going to be something that just wants me to play it all the time. But it's more that what I loved about Skate, I don't have memories of Skate playing with other people in that sense. Because what I love about Skate was just being in a big world where I can go skateboard and do what I want without worrying about other people. Some of the most fun I had in Skate is like choosing an area, setting a spot where you want to do like a cool trick run, and then there's a button combination you can hit to reset everything back to that spot so that you can keep trying, so that you can try and pull this thing off. Mm-hmm. And you could put those anywhere you wanted to. I always thought that was a really neat thing. I'm struggling with worrying that the inclusion of 150 other people skating is going to detract from what I want from the game, not add to it or even be a neutral force. I'm willing to give it a try and hope that it is, but it feels like, and I'm curious where you played a whole lot more free-to-play games than I have. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on why they chose free-to-play and how that might mean the game encourages you to spend money. Because that's my biggest concern.
That should be your biggest concern, because there's two ways. It's all cosmetic, which would be great. Or there's... Yeah, you get these tokens and you spend these tokens to level up your skills. So you have to get these tokens to make your skater better. And you grind for them and you complete missions and you do all this stuff. But wait, hey, do you want to save some time on leveling up your skater? Wait, come here. I have something for you. For $9.99, I'll sell you 200 of those little skill point thingies. That should get you like 5 levels. Then you can spend $40, because obviously it'll take more of those to level up your character. So you got to spend $40, and now you can level up your Ollie skill 1 point. So that's the good and the bad, right?
Yeah, it's it's so weird because, you know, part of me looks at this like, right, if I'm being very open to this idea and thinking, and I haven't looked, I don't know if they have some intention. There's a part of me that can kind of see this cool idea of a game that tries to mimic the curve of learning to skate by having it to be that you do have skills, and the more you do a trick, the better you get at it. And once you get better at a certain trick, it makes it easier for you to attempt another trick. That's cool. But that feels kind of like what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode. It feels like EA doesn't seem like the developer to do that, because that feels more Kingdom Come. That feels like a skateboarding game that's trying to be a hardcore Kingdom Come style RPG than it does a game that's trying to get everybody to play online and holler at the boys and get them together. And so, even though I'm down for that idea, who's making that idea? It's not fucking EA. It's not going to be this. And then weirdly, that feels more in line with what I think the goal with Skate 1 was when Black Box Studios was doing it. So it's difficult here, because I do think that for me, this is kind of touching on some things that I am not immediately sold on. If anything, I'm a little iffy on. But as I said with Expedition 33, I need to be sometimes willing to go, even though I don't like live service games, just play this, see what it's like.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I don't know why you make this free to play unless it's to squeeze every dollar you can out of people. Because if it was all cosmetics, you would think that you would just charge $40, right?
And then
like,
still
people
add
would have
cosmetics later that you can still monetize, but you have built-in ones in the game.
People would have paid $40 for a skate game. It may not have been,
I'd have
fuck
paid
it,
70,
I'll try it.
But you're right, not everyone. So $40 is a pretty good middle ground when you have extra monetization.
You know, yeah. And, you know, you'd have people, you know, I know with free to play, people are going to go onto their console and be like, oh, well, it's free, I might as well try it. But I don't think that balances. Yeah, but I don't think that balances out the people who the $40 you're getting, right? And then if, you know, someone like me loves the game and is like, yeah, I want that shirt with a fucking booger doing a kickflip on it. Yeah, hell yeah, right? Like,
yeah.
It's so I don't know. I guess to me, like, I'm worried about it because I can't see a reason that you would make a game like Skate free to play other than to be money hungry and sell skill points and double XP boosters and all this kind of stuff. It's gonna feel great until like level 10, and then level 10 you're gonna notice like, oh, I just did a whole session with my friends and I didn't level up at all. And then the next session, you're going to gain 2 levels, but your session was a little bit longer. And you had a double XP token that you got for free because you did a grind over, I don't know, the fucking Grand Canyon and kick flipped a Bigfoot. So you earned a free skill tree or whatever. Like that's what worries me about it. So.
Yeah, I'm being as open-minded as I can, but you know, it feels like if Doom went away for 15 years and then suddenly they were like, guys, we're coming back. Doom is now an open world sandbox game where it's you and 70 other demon slayers. And it's just like, I don't think
sounds like a better pitch for a live service than Skate. I'm gonna be dead ass. If you said like if Doom Dark Ages ended with like, oh, there's a world and you go through this portal and this is where the demons are from, we're announcing our Doom of the Dark Ages live service game, I'd be like, okay, I'll play that.
Well, look, doing it immediately is a little different. Having it have no real history of that, but then suddenly coming back as that only would feel weird. And it may not be the best example, but I'm struggling to be like, when I said I wanted Skate back and you said you were making a new Skate, this is not what I had in mind, nor is it what I thought you were talking about. Yeah, the monkey paw. Yeah, it does feel like I used the monkey's paw to jerk my shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then it kind of got like stuck in the paw's fur.
Dude, this is gonna sound so bad because you brought it up, but like me and Me and my KM have had this joke with one of the servers, Emma. They were talking about British people. Instead of I'm coming, they say I'm arriving, and I don't know what reference they were making. So we were just at work just all day, just being like, oh, I'm about to arrive. Oh Lord, the train's pulling out of the station, and the train's pulling into the station, and the train's pulling out of the station, and the train has arrived. It's
Jesus.
Not safe for work, which is ironic.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because TT Dog when you were talking about picking the herbs, he was like, where the hell did the H in herbs go? And I learned for the first time in my life that across the pond, as they like to say, they put the H back in that decidedly French word.
Well, see, TT Dog, what happened was you guys got the H in the divorce, we got the country.
Yeah, that's a good.
You got the H and the U in color.
I was thinking that Colonel Sanders was like, listen. I don't want to say that we got 11 herbs. No, it's herbs.
Herbs is the name of a middle manager. It is not what I put on my chicken.
He kept trying to say herbs, but his thick accent. No, listen to me, boy. Herbs. Herbs. All I'm hearing from you is herbs, sir. Fuck it.
Herbs and spices.
Yeah. So you learn something new every day, though. That's what I love, is that I never have heard a British person say herbs.
Yeah.
And so I had no way of knowing that we stick more to the French than they do, despite them being closer to France.
But fuck the French.
They gave us fries. I don't actually know. Oui. Yeah.
In American fashion, we took their invention and made it our signature food. Fuck you.
Bam. Dude, it's... I don't know. This one's going to be interesting, and I feel like this is a good time to... We got two comments that were they were from the same user, kind of related but separate. But there's a part of his second comment that I think kind of ties somewhat onto this for me, but I also think it's a good time to just kind of bring it up. And it's Big Box 1431 on YouTube. And at the bottom of this thing where he was talking about the Destiny 2 deal, and we'll get to that in a minute when we start talking about Concord. But he says, I sense a strong anti-games as a service narrative in basically all games media. And I think we are probably included in that, but I don't know if he specifically meant to include us in that. That likes to portray any game that's not Fortnite as a failure. Now, I 100% tell you, Fortnite's huge. Call of Duty, huge. Apex, huge. I know these games are fucking massive and very successful. So I'm with you. But he says, I wonder if we look back in 2030 and, this is more about the Bungie thing. We'll bring that back up. But I think specifically kind of talking on this anti-games as a service narrative, I was kind of curious as to why that is, because I don't really spend enough time looking at the average media as much anymore. But I also started thinking, like, what are the reasons? I think that you can go with the very truly negative sense, which is that the people who are in the media are not themselves inherently games as a service anti, but they know that the way the internet works is that if they make an anti-games as a service piece, people who like games as a service will be more likely to click on it and try and be like, what the hell are they talking about? And the people who don't like games as a service, who are obviously a smaller crowd but often more vocal, are going to click through because they're like, hell yeah, they're agreeing with us. Share it. And I think that you could look at it and go, well, they're having their cake and eating it too. Then I think you can go a different route. I think you can start to go, a lot of games media people have been in gaming a long time, in games media a long time, but gaming as a large business has only been games as a service oriented for about 7 years, if we really want to talk about the boom of them. I think, like, if we really think of games as a service in the way we do now, I think one of the first games that really knocked it off of the thing was PUBG, and then it kind of grew into Fortnite and Apex and all these other things. So I think it might also, I think a different way of looking at this might be that the people who are in the games media genuinely don't like games as a service and struggle to find something compelling about it, and they use their platform to talk about things they don't like about it, maybe not in an intention to be overtly negative, but to just share their opinion while kind of going through it. But it's a curiosity for me, because I think, Chris, you've shown a lot of ability to stick with games as a service, and yet I know that one of the bigger points that he had when writing this was actually about Destiny 2 and how well or not well it's doing, or whatever it be. But I don't think that I would consider you, from my opinion, knowing what I know about you, not only from years of doing this podcast together, but plenty of talking separately and playing games together, you don't strike me as an inherently anti-games as a service person. You actually have spent thousands of hours on a handful of them.
Yeah, we just talked about it.
Yeah, and we talk about MLB as well. I think MLB is a quintessential games as a service, but as I like to say, it's a games as a service with an expiration date. It knows when it's going to stop being a games as a service, and then it just becomes a game that you can play. But if you want to keep activating the games as a service aspect, you buy the new one.
Time and place as a service.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. So with that, I don't think that I would consider you anti-games as a service, and yet I know that you have often voiced strong opinions on certain things about games as a service. I know that I have that, and I know that in some sense we are games media. We are modern game media in the sense that while we may not have a very big platform and voice, we do have people that listen to us. And I think that there is an argument that you can say that I, at the very least, often speak in something that could be equated to anti-games as a service. And it's not because I'm literally against them. It's not like I want to see games as a service literally disappear, but I have been a little disappointed in seeing companies that I have a long history with that were doing one thing suddenly start to put all their eggs into a games as a service basket when that doesn't serve me as one of their longtime customers. That doesn't mean I don't think that they can do it, but I do, of course, take this opportunity on our platform to bemoan that a little bit. What do you think is going on with the anti-games as a service thing in media? First of all, do you agree with that? Do you think that's really true? I think you may interact a little bit more with games media than I do these days, because I know you listen to more podcasts about gaming than I do, for sure. Do you think that that's a fair way to kind of paint that?
I think it depends on like what kind of response you want from me, because that's kind of where I go with, at least where you were going, where talking about the platform we have. And I think the way, I think you do to a degree, maybe a little bit different than the way I talk on the show, is like, you know, we're giving our opinions, and I think for the most part, like, me thinking Red Dead was garbage was a bit on this show and Midweek Matinee for years. But like, I think if you talked to me as like a real person, like, I wouldn't say it's garbage. I would say it's not for me, right? Like, it was mostly because it pissed Blake off and it became very funny for me. You know, it's the same thing with Witcher. So, you know, I think that's where, like, if you listen to this podcast, like, I don't claim to be, like, I'm not trying to be Destin Legary. I'm not even trying to be like Colin Moriarty. Like, I don't put hours of research into the show and do all this stuff. Like, I go on VGC, I type out or have AI fucking summarize the news articles depending on how much time I have, and then me and Brett have a discussion as friends about it. So I think if you were going to, I just don't think you should look at me necessarily as like he's a arbiter of opinions about the industry. There's just arbiter of opinions about me. If you wanted my opinion about the industry, I would say that I think people are wary of games as a service because if you look at the spending in the games industry, it's 50% towards 4 or 5 games. It's like GTA, Apex, Fortnite, and Call of Duty, right? So if you look at that, you have the knock-on effects throughout the entire industry of games. Like, when people ask, like, oh, why wasn't this game made? Or why can't we get a sequel to Sly Cooper? And it's like, well, Sly Cooper sold 1 million copies, which might have been okay when games were $40, but and you know, we didn't need to they were $40 to sell and $20 to make. When that was the industry, then you could take more risks like that. But now games cost more, and most of the money is being spent on giant behemoths that take all of it. So you have to. So while people are upset, like, oh, why wouldn't Sony buy a studio like Firebright, and they should be doing, I don't know, Jack and Daxter, make Jack and Daxter, right? That doesn't make any sense, because if you look at where the money is in the industry, the stark reality is that it's all coming from free to play. So the only thing, quite frankly, as a responsible company that Sony can do is try and bite into that space. And so I don't think there's necessarily games as a service, but I think the knock-on effects that games as a service have had on the industry as a whole have been overwhelmingly negative, because you only get a game like Concord from a company like Sony if they're desperate to try and take some of the Fortnite players. You only get Sony buying a studio like Haven and it burning itself to the ground because they're desperate to get in with these people. But I will say risks like these buttress things like Death Stranding 2, because sorry to break it to you guys, Death Stranding 2 is not a popular franchise, or Death Stranding in general is not a popular franchise. Death Stranding 2 has sold like 1 million copies. Death Stranding 1 took 5 years to get to 5 million and players, if I'm not mistaken, not copies sold. So that's the amount of people that played Sly Cooper, and look what happened to Sly Cooper. So I think that a lot of the reason that you get a game like Death Stranding is because a game like Fortnite is subsidizing it. That's the reality. And Sony only gets 30% of Fortnite. If Concord hit like Fortnite, they would have gotten 100%. So I think if you're looking for my opinions as like a jokey, jovial, fucking having a good time talking to Brett, then I like a lot of games as a service, but like I don't care about half of them. If you want it from an analytical perspective, objectively and by every measure, games as a service has pulled down the industry, whether you like them or not, in a way that everyone is chasing it because everyone is spending on it.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about that, and I think that it is happening, but I think the perception around it's sometimes difficult to grasp, is that you hit on something I was already going to bring up, which is, for me, as someone who doesn't really care about games as a service, but doesn't want to see companies go fully toward them, I agree in the sense that I want to see. Okay, it's like part of the reason I hop onto Activision so hard is because Activision literally makes so much money off of Call of Duty. And what I wish they would do, and I wish this of Epic Games as well, but we'll go to a company like Activision, who before Microsoft owned them, they had so many IP that they just did not do anything with. What I'd like to see, and I think what most people would like to have a feeling of, like they perceive it to be this way, even if it is, if they're having a difficulty seeing it that way, it's because it's not happening to a big enough degree that they view it that way. And what that is understanding that the big money comes in from games as a service and making sure that you do invest back into it, but then going, okay, this is where we make big money, but occasionally let's siphon some of that money off and use the fact that we have this kind of lifeboat to take creative risk and do things with IP that's new or beloved old ones and see if we can revamp them. Worst case scenario, hopefully we can at least recoup development costs. And even if it doesn't do big, this big game that brings in the money for us consistently is still keeping us good. And I think that's a really cool way to go. And I think it's exactly what Sony does, right? Sony goes, we get a lot of money coming in from Fortnite, which is really what makes Sony make money. And like you said, if we can put money into something and get to a point where we hit 50% of the players of Fortnite, but we get 100% of what we're getting, then that's arguably more valuable to PlayStation than 30% of double that. You get what I'm saying? Like it's at some point you kind of go, oh, okay. The math eventually hits a point where you don't even have to hit Fortnite numbers. You just have to get 100% of the money coming in on your platform. So when you pull all of it together, I think people want to feel like what Sony's doing, which is, hey, take your chances there, but then use the money that you're making from these games as a service, be it whether you're a platform holder benefiting from the microtransactions, or if you're the one making them, and putting them out there and actually getting 100%, use that money to go towards things like a new Sly Cooper, or in this case, a Death Stranding 2, which is a game that I think we all understand is meant to be a powerhouse game, but it's not meant to really sell huge. I think Sony knew that going into it because of the tale of Death Stranding 1. They knew that, I think, whenever they greenlit Death Stranding 2. Death Stranding 2 may still perform worse than they were hoping for, but I don't think in a surprising manner. I think that they'll be like, oh, well, we had projected this, but unfortunately it's not hitting projections, but that's not the most surprising thing in the world, but that's why we have this other income avenue, and that's why we're constantly seeking out a bigger piece of the income that is the core of the industry. So yeah, I would love to feel like that was more obvious, which I think means that more people need to be doing that, because Activision has all that, but then they don't. It's like they killed the Crash Bandicoot thing, even though Crash Bandicoot was doing well. And then they apparently killed a new Spyro game, which was doing well. They killed a new Tony Hawk game, I think, at the time, that was doing well. They come back to it, apparently. So it's one of those things where it's like, you're Activision and you own some of the most important gaming franchises of all time, but you refuse to do anything with them because of the safety of Call of Duty. Why not both? Why not 70% the safety of Call of Duty, 30% towards riskier projects, just so that you can still have a creative foothold in the industry? But like you said, that's technically not best business sense. But in a way, I feel like it might be, because what if you also hit big on the risky investment? What if you also
risky investment doesn't have microtransactions?
You were right, but what if you hit big on both? Then you kind of, again, that thing, you have your cake and you eat it too. Let's say that you both. Sure,
that's the point.
Yeah, but and doing both is inherently more risky. So it's interesting, and I'm sorry that you feel like there's an and more so that there's a strong anti-games as a service narrative in games media. And if you're including us in that, I'm not surprised that you are. I can see why. But I would say that, much like Chris, I'm not saying from my perspective how I feel about the industry as a whole. I understand that games as a service is ultimately just where gaming's at. Most of the time I am speaking on my own behalf. I'm speaking about how it makes me feel. So I don't think being anti-games as a service just because I myself don't like games as a service, and I wouldn't say anti, I would say me not necessarily just talking so greatly about games as a service, since I don't enjoy them to the same degree, it's not a big deal, because I'm just talking about my own personal experience with them. But I do think that there's also the thing where, even though that's what I'm saying and what I think I'm saying, there's also someone who can listen to this and go, oh no, they're saying that no one should be playing games as a service and that they're bad. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they're bad for me.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's interesting. And I guess I'm going to start paying a little bit more attention, because I just don't feel like I ever see, at the very least, to the point where Fortnite is the only successful game. I feel like I often see people talking well about, up until like the last year and a half, 2 years, I feel like Destiny 2 was always being talked about in a positive light by even games media. I felt like the games media I saw, at least, I feel like Apex is constantly being talked well. Grand Theft Auto Online is a games as a service that's constantly being talked about well. I think even some of the things that have kind of pushed in that direction, like Forza Horizon, has kind of got that. I think Gran Turismo does a really good job in that regard. And I know that maybe not all of them are as games as a service as Fortnite, Apex, Call of Duty, but I don't know. I guess I'm curious as, maybe I don't feel it because I don't have as much skin in the games as a service game as I know Big Box does. I know he's a big games as a service proponent. And so when you hear someone say anything negative about it, it has more of a sting. And I understand that, because on the flip side, if I heard someone talk badly about narrative driven single player games, it would have more of an impact on me than hearing someone go, I'm not really liking what Bungie's been doing with Destiny 2. It's like, it's inherently different for me because I have skin in a different game. And that kind of makes sense to me. So, Chris, our next piece of news is the final thing we're going to talk about today. And it is kind of in the same vein, just by accident, of how this has gone on today. PlayStation Studios CEO Herman Hulst candidly reflected on the fallout from Concord, the disastrous live surface shooter that Sony pulled offline just 2 weeks after its launch. What a day for me to wear my Concord gravestone shirt. It's good times. I didn't know that when I put this shirt on. Rather than avoiding risk. Holst emphasized that future missteps should happen, quote, early and cheaply, a stark contrast to Concord's 8-year high-cost development cycle that ended in a costly failure. To that end, Sony has implemented more rigorous and frequent testing, increased oversight, and fostered better coordination between studios and executives, many of whom now spend hours playing builds before launch to catch potential issues early. Moreover, Holst has moved away from the earlier goal announced by former President Jim Ryan of pushing out 12 live service titles by fiscal year 2025. Instead, his focus lies in delivering a diverse set of player experiences and vibrant communities. Rather than chasing quantity, Sony is now more selective, leaning into quality, which is always what they should have done. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. I mean, if anything, Sony's biggest thing to me was that they were built on quality for like they had like a decade of being the go-to place for like the best games. That should have been your stick from the get-go, not throw 12 at the wall.
Yeah. Yep.
What a while. I would say throw 3 really well tested and make sure we did the shit at a wall and see what happens. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, he says this is leaning into quality and variety over volume, especially given the volatile nature of the live service market. In essence, the Concord failure served as a hard-earned wake-up call, prompting Sony to reinforce testing and oversight frameworks, encourage quicker and cheaper experimentation, and pivot toward more curated, community-driven games, balancing creative freedom with strategic prudence. Chris.
Brett.
Concord is probably one of the most interesting games, as weird as that is to say. One of the games that biggest reason it got canceled or got the reception it did is because it was so uninteresting, is probably, ironically, one of the most interesting things to happen in our industry because of how it allowed us to kind of peek at what happens and how decisions are made.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this because I think this kind of all wraps into this games as a service talk that's been happening here and there on the show. And of course, as Big Box mentioned, maybe in general news. But I also want to go to say that looking at this and hearing Holst say candidly what happened and that they did make a series of bad decisions is a great way for us to pivot into the rest of the question. And then we can talk about Concord some more and Sony's games as a service. But I think this is a really great spot to kind of go into the initial comment that Big Box left before he kind of came to the second comment and added on. And he says, I have some questions about the Bungie acquisition. Sony bought Bungie for $3.6 billion in 2022. 1, at what point was Sony supposed to recoup their investment on that $3.6 billion? 2, how much revenue and profit, estimate if necessary, does Destiny 2 currently bring in? 3, in 2025, do you believe PlayStation has done a 180 on live service, or does Sony still think it's a growing, vital part of the video game market? I remember when Microsoft bought Mojang for $1 million in 2014, and many people on the internet said,
Billion.
Yeah, 1 billion.
Yeah, you said million. That's all. I'm just...
Oh, 1 billion. If I did say million, it may have just been me talking weird. Anyway, many people on the internet said they spent way too much. Time has kind of proven the opposite, which I think is a fair point. Is it possible that Sony, a company well-versed in making large acquisitions, accurately assessed Bungie's value and the nature of games media, has done a poor job at painting an accurate picture? I personally think we have to wait to see how Destiny 2, Destiny Rising Marathon, and Team LFG's Gummy Bears does over the next 5 years before we can judge the return on investment on Bungie. Now, I think that this is really an interesting thing to consider because I think to get the big thing out of the way, is it possible that Sony accurately assessed Bungie and this is not too far out? Is it possible? Sure. There's a world in where it's possible that this exists. Now, Chris, I do know that this comment is largely aimed at you because if you remember, I think it was an episode or two ago, we had a talk, and you probably noticed when we were there, I was I pushed back a little bit on the sense of there is a world in where Sony just didn't, like they did it, but they just took a swing and a chance. To his point, I get where he's coming from. To your point, Sony and Herman just said that they made mistakes in how to value Concord and spent a lot of time, money, effort, and at the end of the day, PR and trust issues on a game that was not worth the time and energy invested in it. Now, for being honest, Concord is clearly a drop in the bucket and compared to a $3.6 billion purchase. But I think it does show that in an effort to try and rush their way to a market that they viewed as important, Sony was more willing to let certain things slide, hoping that they hit big. And so I would say that as much as I still kind of gave you a little bit of pushback, I do understand where you're coming from when you at least posit that Sony, well, that you posit that Sony I posited that Sony just messed up and didn't value them correctly, and you posited that they were lied to. And I think all of these are completely viable options if we're just being honest, and we'll never know until 20 years down the line when someone writes a book. But I think it's Big Box. I think it's important to note that this is not a one-off thing. Sony has bought a number of studios and shuttered them, and that's been more aggressive in regards to their games as a service investments. And I think since Bungie was clearly part of that, we can see how maybe they've made some bad calls. But let's just go back to when they bought Zipper Interactive, when they bought big studios, when they bought all these people that they closed down in 2011, 2012, 2013. Because Sony has a long history of investing in somebody that they think that they get the thing out of. Then they release a product or they don't. And then they go, actually, it was a bad call. We had to shut them down. So Chris, I want to put the floor over to you because I can tell that you're anxious to say something or you get something off of your chest about how you feel about this. And this is more, I think, aimed at you. So how do you feel about this? And, where do you come from on it?
Bungie was promised full independence. And that has already gone away because of their failures 2 years later, however many years later.
Chris, I don't want to interrupt you big time, but I just want to put in here that in that second comment that he added on to, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he did say Destiny 2 has always had a 10-year plan, and Sony probably knew about Bungie's plan to transition after the final shape. Plus, Sony wrote into the Bungie contract. I don't know if this is true, mind you. But Sony wrote into the Bungie contract that they would be absorbed by PlayStation if Bungie didn't hit certain financial metrics. I don't know how true that is. I didn't look that hard at it.
But that is true. And this is, I guess, why I'm confused. Bungie being absorbed into Sony proves the theory. Because the contract stipulates that they'll be absorbed into Sony if they fail to hit their goals. So no matter how you cut it, what they wanted out of the deal failed. I don't know how to look at it any other way.
Well, I think just to be charitable, their ideal version of what they wanted failed, but that's why they put in this stipulation that they could exert control as a way to
I think it is straight
make the investment
cope.
Hopefully better. Yeah.
I think it is cope to think that Sony went into this deal expecting that Sony went into this deal thinking that if Bungie was absorbed into Sony, something was catastrophically wrong with Bungie. That there's no other way that you think about that. Yes, they put that in there to protect themselves, but that in an ideal world, Sony would much prefer that Bungie is an independent entity. Otherwise, they would have just paid the money for a little bit more money, and they would have absorbed them immediately.
Yeah.
Marathon might hit, although look at what happened when Marathon's Alpha came out. That was horrendous for that game. What was it? The CFO the other day actively said that the game, not actively, they were like, we think we're going to ship it, but if it's canceled, the fact that if it's canceled came out of her mouth should terrify anyone excited for Marathon, even though it's unlikely to happen. And Gummy Bears could be anything. I'm not saying, I think Gummy Bears looks kind of, that one screenshot we saw looked kind of neat, but like, even looking at that screenshot, that does look kind of neat. That also looks like a kind of game that's going to get torn down by the internet. So,
but why? And that's more of a curiosity on my part. This is not me doing anything on the behalf of trying to put myself in Big Box's shoes. You're saying, because like I didn't see the screenshot for Team. I thought that all they did was announce that it was, I can't remember, a frog game. Isn't that what they said? Yeah, I'll look at it just for reference. So you said
it's an old
Gummy Bears screenshot
image.
Anyway, I guess I should do Team LFG. So with all of that in mind, what I'm saying is, you're saying that the internet will tear it apart. Now, is that just due to strictly the game in and of itself, from what you can see,
coming from Sony?
Okay, that's what I was about to ask. Do you think it's because of the context around it, and including the Bungie of it all? Because if you kind of look right now, where Marathon is not on great footing, at least PR wise. Now, again, I always want to note, the people who are being loud are not always indicative of the actual majority of people. Just because online discourse around Marathon is not looking good doesn't mean that Marathon couldn't come out and do well. Just because online discourse for Destiny 2 is not looking great doesn't inherently mean that Destiny 2 is doing awful right now. I mean, you can look at it a number of ways.
It is.
I'm pretty sure it is. The one thing about live service games is, I will say, because they're so community driven and they're trying to reach out to those people, I think that there's more reason to think that people decrying something on the internet for a live service game, that feels like it has more merit than people on the internet decrying something about a single player driven game. And I think that's just because of the nature of live service games are about you socializing on the internet. So you going online to then further socialize about the game in a positive or negative sense outside of that feels like it weighs more than someone just going, The Last of Us 2 fucking blows. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to really say that, but I think there's a lot of people who would have loved The Last of Us 2 and just never felt the need to go online and say anything about it because they don't socialize online that way.
I mean, that's just a normal online
type of game. Yeah,
people are going to complain before they give you a compliment. I work in restaurants, like that's just the reality.
Also true. Yeah, so with that all, it's just, I think it's interesting to look and say, why is that? So you think now it'd be really primarily tore up strictly because of the fact that is that it? Is the screenshot you're talking about the one that has like the cat at the girl's leg?
Yeah.
And she's like, it's like a dude skydiving?
Pretty much. I think so, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
So
art style's cool, which kind of leads you to the Marathon. Marathon has a really cool art style, but that doesn't mean it's inherently a great game.
Who drew the Gummy Bears art style first?
So
I don't know. I just think,
with all that in mind, I get where you're coming from. Continue. I'm sorry.
I think in the end of like, there's a lot of, I don't know. I guess this is just such a big topic for people, but I feel like it's like pretty plainly obvious what happened, because Sony is absorbing Bungie. Like I could turn out that I was wrong, and this was some deal where Sony was like, "Oh, we know that that Bungie's going to fail, and they want independence. Well, we're going to take a discount and we're going to absorb them anyway for all the IP they don't have." Like, I don't really know. Like, what are you doing this for? Oni and Destiny? Because if Sony was going to make Destiny, the home run move for Bungie is just to make Destiny 3 and just live your life as the live your life as the Destiny factory. But Bungie doesn't want to do that. Sony seems clear that they're not forcing Destiny 3. So I don't understand how there's any argument that this was a good investment. Remember, they paid $3.6 billion. Do you remember what year they did that?
Yeah, 2022.
Right. So 2022. So Sony has been footing the bill for Bungie and Destiny since 2022. So they paid $3.6 billion. How much do you think the costs have gone up since then? Just because they paid the $3.6 billion doesn't mean that they are now don't pay any more money. They paid the $3.6 billion for the luxury of paying all the bills too. So they have to pay these people. They have to employ these people. I don't see a world where Marathon and Gummy Bears makes up for that. And the thing is, Sony paid an extra $1 billion in the deal for retention bonuses
to specifically keep the talent on board, because they were considered to be a good investment for being able to hopefully seemingly it was two things. It was to keep Bungie as a good studio that they viewed them as, apparently, whenever they did this, whether or not that was true, and secondarily because it does seem from everything that we've heard that there was some intention of using the knowledge of the people that you're trying to retain to buoy your other games as a service initiatives.
And that's my point, right? So they paid that $1 billion to keep these people, had 2 rounds of layoffs. And what's the most that we've gotten out of this? You guys are the overseer of Sony's live service. Concord, and they canceled The Last of Us Factions, which was probably, of all of the games they had in development in live service space, was the only shoo-in to be at least relatively successful. And they shut that down. So
always a weird move. I will never understand why they didn't just pivot that to a different studio.
The problem was never that move. Well, that, yes, but the fact that Naughty Dog didn't realize that they would have to spend all this time working on a live service game, that too. That's a conversation that someone has to sit down with Neil and go, what the fuck were you thinking?
Yeah. But also, to be real though, you cannot tell me that fucking Twin Motion can go, we're done with our development on Dead Cells. Here you go, Evil Empire. You can make whatever the fuck. You can just keep making this. You can't. You're telling me that Naughty Dog couldn't just go, oh, we're done with our part in it. We had a good time with it, but we don't want to become this and say this. So we're just going to give all of this to you. It's basically close to ready to release. You'll need to come up with exactly how to support it, but here you go. We're going to go off and start making Intergalactic. That is such a weird move, and I, in a way, I respect it in this crazy way. Like, you're willing to throw years of development and probably like hundreds of millions of dollars down the drain just to give one of your premier studios like creative independence. But why didn't you just go, hey, we need a games as a service and this game's almost done? Like, maybe don't give it to the Concord team because they don't have a lot of trust behind them right now. But like, maybe give it to literally anybody else.
Yeah, but even
fucking
the thing
give
with
it
Concord,
to Saber Interactive.
The Concord, well, they're not going to do that. But the Concord, the Concord team had good gameplay. They didn't have good art. So, I mean, that's a weird thing.
They had fine gameplay with uninspired art.
The art was worse than anything I've ever seen in my life. Look at this. Look at this. This is horrible.
Look at that
horrible. Chin. Wonder what happens if I put the disc in. It's unopened. I'm not opening it for that. I don't know, man. I don't really understand how you can convince yourself that this has been good. That doesn't mean in the long run we as gamers will not have good games to play, and Marathon won't be fun, and Gummy Bears won't be cool. But I would put everything I own, everything my parents own, and everything my brothers own on a bet that Sony would not make this deal if they could go back in time, knowing what they know now. I
think it's interesting.
Anything in my life,
because he does. You know, the final tag of his second comment is, I just wonder if we look back at this at this time in 2030 and go, quote, well, we were way off about the Bungie acquisition. And look, man,
I don't think we will.
How can I now? Here's the thing. This sounds like you're saying that because what's going to make them their money is already going and working. In the grand scheme, that it's not impossible for Bungie as a company to, in this 5-year window that they have, but to 2030 to find a game that works and propels them back to the top. It is certainly possible, but if what you're questioning is whether or not, separate of that, if they just keep going as they were, that the return on investment is going to obviously be like, oh no, this was actually a great acquisition, that doesn't feel like it's really on the table as what you would call a great acquisition. By 2030, it may just kind of be like they've been able to balance themselves to where they've been able to consistently justify themselves, and that'd be fine. That's at least not a bad acquisition. But I think if you're going to say that we were way off about it and like the way that people are cumulatively talking, then something is going to have to drastically change. And I don't think it's something that's happening at Bungie as of 2024. It might be happening right now as they're going, we've got to figure shit out because, you know, we've only got so many years before eventually Sony may decide that we're not worth the investment. And I say that because Sony has shut down a lot of things. Sony's also never made a $3 billion gaming investment for a studio. So I don't know if they'd be a little less likely to close it. If my gut would tell me that if I spent $3.6 billion on something and they're not meeting that, I would want to cut that as quickly as I could. If I don't see a path towards it becoming profitable in the reasonable future.
But that's the thing that's missing here. And I think you're doing it in this. I don't remember this guy's name, but the commenter is doing it too.
Yeah.
You're never going to make that money back. And that's not the point.
Well, what do you mean that you're not going to make the 3.6
Destiny,
back?
Marathon, Gummy Bears, even if they were the top of the top, is never going to make up for what was spent and what will continue to be spent. Again, the $3.6 billion compounds every month. Hell, it compounds every week when people get paid. So that money is never going to be black.
I get what you're basically getting at is the 3.6 billion is not like a static number that is there. They paid that to the people just to have ownership, like you said, to pay for the rights to pay the bills. That is what purchases are. Like spending the money for Activision is that, and then you still have to pay them every month. So your first month is literally you already like. I don't know that
has lost
I don't
money.
know that you. Okay, look, this is gonna. I'm not a huge. I'm a salesperson, but I'm not a businessman. I don't actually look at high level business. But I would imagine that acquisitions happen because eventually they consider themselves able to recoup money. Now, I'm not saying this investment will. I don't know, but I would say that when a company generally acquires somebody, it's probably for one of two purposes. One is to, what we see often, acquire them in order to take competition off of the table, which is in and of itself a return on investment because you're not going to lose customers to a potential someone else, or because you see that what they have could be beneficial to you and eventually you will recoup that money. And I that meaning that I don't think anybody acquires with the thought process of, that's $50 million we just don't ever see. The idea is that bringing that into the fold, if you can continue to grow it, will net you that 50 million or 50 billion, whatever, and all that more if it's handled correctly. I don't know that Bungie has been, but go ahead. What you going to say?
Well, I mean, that was exactly what I was going to say. So I could have just said it. The whole point is that you're not spending for Marathon to make the money. You're spending for. Bungie is an advisor to Concord, which because of Bungie's work and help is now a top live service game. You're not spending for Marathon to be the one that makes profit. That doesn't make sense. You're spending for Bungie's expertise to make money throughout the unit, and it's all in aggregate.
I think that's a very obvious choice. I see that, but I do want to find out where, because I think everybody, I think I get where you're coming from, and I see where your belief is coming from there. At what point can we stretch that to where you go, okay, maybe. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that Marathon manages, it's probably the bad example, but we're just going to call it Marathon. What if Marathon manages to come out, and within 6 months, it literally hits Fortnite numbers?
Sure.
Do you shift at that point to go, okay, even though that's not what they purchased it for, it ended up working in that favor, and they did recoup in a 3-year window, Marathon recoup that entire original investment? Like, does that shift you to going, okay, it's possible? You just think it's very unlikely? Is that really what you're saying when you say that you? Because I get what you mean. The value that I think Sony saw in it was they're valuable enough to keep themselves afloat while being advisors on all of our other games.
I mean, but that's the thing. Like, if I shit gold, I'd be rich.
I mean, yeah, that's a fun way to put it.
Like, sure, if Marathon hit Fortnite numbers, they'd be happy. I don't know what other answer you would want from me. But
well, the reason I say that is because
that's
you
not
said
going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen.
There's no reality where it's even close to Fortnite.
I don't even know. That's another thing. If I'm being honest to my ignorance here, I don't know where Destiny 2 was in the echelon of games as a service game. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't know in terms of income monthly at its height, where did it sit in comparison to Fortnite?
I mean, it was in that top, but
I mean, clearly it was, but because you have like 5 games. But if Fortnite, let's just to put numbers on there for argument, if Fortnite is $100 million a month, and Destiny 2 is
I don't think it is more than that.
Well, sure, but just for a scale, even if Destiny 2 is number 5, or really even if Destiny 2, if we're just being honest, even if Destiny 2 is number 5, and it brings in $2 million a month, 10 million, let's say 10. It brings in 10 million, and then number 1 is Fortnite, which brings in $100 million a month. That is a massive gap. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm saying that since I don't have a good scale of context there, I don't really know how to personally evaluate Bungie's legitimate ability to recoup that investment. That's just something I don't think I could even begin to guesstimate on, because I don't know enough about that market of business or where Destiny 2 was. Because I think right before Sony bought them, I think Destiny 2 was kind of hitting a stride. Like, it was like,
it was at its peak, right? It was like first light.
Yeah. So and that's pretty cool. That's wild. So I can see why Sony could have thought that, and why it still might be true. Because if they can do that, they can do it again. I mean, even throughout the course of Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, there have been a number of, oh, this game's dead. Oh, this game's back, baby. Right? Like, oh, Destiny 1's kind of disappointing. The first, the House of Wolves is kind of disappointing. Oh, guess what? Taken King fucking rules, baby. Let's go. Bring in the money. And then Destiny 2 eventually comes out, and it's like, Destiny 2 is kind of underwhelming, but okay. And then they go, first expansion's kind of oh, Forsaken, baby, let's go, everybody's back. Like, that's, if there's one thing that's true of Bungie and Destiny, I don't know the numbers attached to it exactly, but I'll tell you this: sentiment and money around Destiny and Bungie have been this fucking roller coaster since they've gone independent. So I don't think it's crazy to think that they're in a low right now, maybe even the lowest low they've been in since they've been independent. But it's not that crazy to me, strictly from what I've seen from them, to imagine that they're able to, within a 2-year period, right back up. It doesn't seem likely to me with what we know, and that's the biggest question: is there's not an obvious path forward, because there's not the Destiny 3
opinion
or whatever.
If Destiny 3 was in development, but what's in development is plagiarize the video game and a game they gave away to somebody else. So what? Please, somebody tell me what I'm supposed to be excited about from Bungie. What's the Fortnite thing? What?
Well, to be honest, I wouldn't be excited for a Fortnite level thing from Bungie anyway, because it doesn't sound up my alley.
Well, yeah, but you're not. But you're the fake person I was talking shit about an hour ago.
Exactly.
Who wants Jack and Daxter from Naughty Dog? Stupid.
No, I don't actually.
Well, then you're one of the smart ones. There's just,
I'd take a Sly 5 though.
I think the best thing that you're gonna get from Bungie is kind of how I feel about my Steam Deck, where it's like, I shouldn't have bought this. I probably wouldn't buy it again, but I'm glad I have it. That's the best thing you're gonna get. And I don't think that's a bad place for Bungie to be, but that's where they are. And everything that's happened just indicates that. Like, unless you like, I would defend, I don't know, Rockstar too. Like I would defend them, and I would stump for them. But if GTA 6 sucks, GTA 6 sucks. And like it's kind of the same thing here, where it's like I feel like we're defending there's a defense of Bungie because we like them as a studio, but if you just look strictly at the fact that they're being absorbed into Sony, what I've been saying the whole time is just objectively proven by that. Whether it proves out that Bungie was horrendous or not is one thing, but Sony does not make a deal with a company that it gives independence to but still pays their bills. You understand? Let's put it in political terms. Sony's getting cucked by Bungie, and they're paying to be cucked by Bungie.
They're investing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that a cuck would be happy that his wife has decided to be monogamous?
So you know how
it's not naivete.
I say this, and I don't know if it's just a local thing or if I don't think I came up with it, so I'm going to go ahead and say that. But here in Texarkana, there used to be a place where like nuns were, for lack of like a nun. I don't know what you work, what verb like a
monastery.
Do you say? I guess it was like a building where nuns stayed at, and they would bring in new nuns to raise them up. Whatever that is, whatever that term is, we had one, and I have grown to calling it the nunnery. That's pretty now good. I'm trying to figure out it would the equivalent of a place where you bring up cucking, like would that be a cuckery?
No, that would be a hotel.
That's fair. Any hotel room with the cuck chair.
Yep. Which is all of them for some reason.
Look, I really have played a lot of devil's advocate on here because I am very willing to admit that I'm just too ignorant on all this stuff in the true sense of the word. I don't know enough. I've played some games as a service, but I don't have that much of an interest in them, so I don't spend much time looking into them or how much money they make because I don't care if I'm just being real. And then on the secondary side of things, like I think it's completely reasonable to just say that Sony did make a investment that they might not repeat had they known how it was going to go. At least at this point, like, right, if they could say, like, right now, if they go, if I had a time machine, I'd go back and undo it. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I don't think it's crazy to think that Sony might be in a position where they go, we're not feeling great about this acquisition, and it's not what we were hoping for out of it. It's also not crazy to think that Sony did value them to me, just to throw out there. It's not crazy to think that Sony still is looking at them as like we've always known that they have a roller coaster of investment. And the question will be, how long is this one and do they ever come out of it? And at some point you go, we can't afford to keep waiting to see if they come out of it if they don't. And then it becomes a point of, do we cut our losses and let them, and close this studio or let them try to buy their independence back out, whatever it be. So I think that's why I play the devil's advocate so much, is because I think from a standpoint of a reasonable person, I think most of the arguments that I've presented, and even you presented, and to some degree as well, what he's presented, are all feasible. And I don't think that they're inherently 100% obvious that way or not. We just don't know enough. But I don't think he's in the wrong for feeling like he enjoys that segment and he enjoys maybe Bungie, and he thinks this may be a good investment. And I don't think you're wrong for looking at this and going, I'm not seeing the magic that Bungie was probably, or that Sony expected from Bungie, so this is not going well. And the reality is that both might be true.
Well, and that's the thing, is I think it's like it's a weird thing, because like I don't dislike Bungie.
Nor do I.
We just talked about it. We spent what?
That's the interesting
thing. You
thing.
spent 400 hours on Destiny. I spent almost 300. Like, we were in the trenches, bro. Like, it's just looking at news and facts for me and being like, it can't have worked out the way they wanted it to. I don't think that just because something becomes a good investment by accident, it means it was a good investment. That's my biggest point. Like, You know,
Now,
it's not.
if it becomes a good investment in the long run, because, and I don't, again, it's hard to say if we'd ever know this, but if it becomes a good investment because Sony, through absorbing them back in and taking a little bit more of a hands-on approach, manages to turn some of their bad habits around, then that is not an accident. That's working together, which is what a good acquisition should be, right?
I think that's great for like a private citizen or a stockbroker. But when you're a company and you go, we're going to spend $3.6 billion to up our live service, to up our live service thing. And then you've gotten Gummy Bears out of it. And then you got Marathon, but none of your other live service games hit. The investment you made and the purpose you made it for failed. So it's a failed investment that worked out a different way. That's all I'm saying.
I think that's fair. Yeah, like you don't purchase someone with the hopes that you're going to have to pump a lot of resources into them to get them to where they are producing for you.
Yeah, again, I like the Marathon Alpha. I hope it's good. I'm not actively rooting against Bungie.
Yeah, I didn't play it. I mean, and that's why it's so hard. Like some people are like, wouldn't it suck if they closed Bungie? I've heard someone ask me that question. I'm like, I don't care. Like, not in like a mean way. I hope that Bungie have careers, but in terms of how it impacts me, very little.
I still think the funniest outcome would be Bungie, because they were absorbed into Sony, making a single player Halo killer.
That would be so funny.
They should call it Halo Killer. That would be fucking hilarious.
That would be so funny. But it's, that's where I think you really got to figure out where you are, because when someone looks and they go, we don't want Bungie to close, or how would you feel if Bungie closed? This is just to kind of really put it in aspect. And again, not because I hate Bungie. I played enough, and I don't think they're a bad studio. I think they're fine. But in terms of what I primarily like about gaming, what I would tell you is I'm more saddened by the actual closure of the team that made Concrete Genie than I am the potential closure of Bungie. But that's also because Bungie's had a long history to fail and try again, and they have failed and tried again. The problem I have with the Concrete Genie studio is that they got one try. And it's like, that's just, there's more to be sad about that. That's like, it sounds kind of fucked up, but that's like a 5-year-old dying as opposed to like a 47-year-old dying. You're like, I mean, both are sad, but like the 5-year-old's way sadder. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That'd be a fucked up way to put it, but that's a perfect spot to end this podcast at, Chris.
It's a perfect spot to end this podcast on infanticide.
Infanticide. Oh God, that's what a terrible thing. So anyway, Chris, thanks for joining me as always. Big Box, thanks for commenting. I mean, really, I do think it's an interesting thing to talk about. Sometimes I wish I was a little bit more, for questions of this caliber, I wish I was a little bit more in on it, because I don't really know. And that's kind of the biggest problem, is I don't want to say anything too strongly because I don't have that strong of an opinion on it. I think because what I've partially learned is I just don't have that strong of an opinion on a lot of gaming stuff in comparison to what I once did. I think that's part of it. I think in general you soften as you age. I think that's a fairly reasonable thing. And whether that comes from just life experience or less time to spend putting energy into things that don't really matter. Or at least they don't matter as much as other things to you. So it's an interesting place to be, but it is where we are. So Chris, as always, thanks for joining me. We will be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thank you guys. We appreciate it. If you want to go over to patreon.com/Nartech and give as little as $1 per month, you crank that Soulja Boy right on over there. On your, what was the Soulja Boy console that he sold? Like I
think it was just called the Soulja Boy console.
The Soulja Boy handheld. Anyway, head over to patreon.com if you want to support us with more than just your time. We're always thankful for those who did. And as a thank you for the people who have done so, we like to shout them out at the end of every episode. So without further ado, shout out to Ryan Goldner, Low Rate Nate, Spencer, Brandon Edwards, Alex, Barry Rogers, Stingray X, Matt Tubbs, Easton328, Bailey Robertson, Mark Schutz, Rude Days 93, Kevin Bacon Bits, Danny Villiobos, Jehudi MD, No Fate, Josh Ayers, Derek Porter, and Sean Sanderud. Thanks to each and every one of you, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.